Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Whole Child Autism Coaching free video series. So just in case you missed our first video, let me just tell you a little bit about who we are. This is Tali Berman. I'm an autism specialist and author, and I am here today with Roni, who is a certified dietitian and nutritionist and a practitioner of the biomedical approach as advocate of the Autism Research Institute. So, Roni, so glad that we could be here together today.
As am I. It's always fun.
So just so you guys know, we are now in video 2 of our free video series. And this free video series is part of our launch for our Whole Child Autism Integrative Coaching Package, which we are opening spaces for, limited spaces for next week. But before we did that, we wanted to give you guys some videos and really share some really useful tools, both from a biomedical perspective, which is Roni's expertise, and a therapeutic perspective, which is mine. And we're going to do 4 strategies today, 2 from each of us. And the second hottest topic that you all told us you wanted help with was anxiety. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is anxiety. So I'm going to start with the first one, and we'll take it from there. And the first strategy I'm going to share is getting to the why. And what I mean by that is understanding the source of anxiety is going to be really critical in coming up with a targeted strategy to address this. And I really suggest doing this by creating an anxiety log, where you watch very carefully where it is that you see your child have sort of extensive anxiety, right? And this can look like your child expressing that he's feeling anxious, an increase in stimming, an increase in hyperactivity. To understand what it could be about. Is it 20 minutes after they eat lunch? Is it after a certain therapist comes to the house? Is it before they go to school? Is it when they come home from school? Is it after a particular therapy? The more we can understand the source of the anxiety, the more we can address it in a targeted way. I want to give one quick story to demonstrate that. We're working with a mom who has 3 children with autism, and one of her daughters started quite intensively pulling out chunks of her hair. I don't know, Roni, if you've ever come across this in the clients that you've served, but like chunks of hair were missing. And it was a pretty clear indication of anxiety for her child, and we were trying to figure out what it had to do with. So we did a log, and we really looked closely to see if we could see any patterns. We looked at when the hair pulling started, when it escalated. And it happened to be that shortly after she tried a new therapy, which was a very intensive reading therapy, she was really trying to help her child learn how to read, is right around the time that she started pulling out chunks of her hair. And so we really watched that closely and recognized that that particular therapy, though she was on a wait list for months and months and months to get into that treatment, wasn't working for her daughter. It was creating a lot of stress on her system. It was doing a lot of stress on her visual processing system, which was her weaker system. And so it was causing a lot of stress and anxiety for her. And that was when she started pulling out her hair. So I really urged her, despite the wait list, to take her out of that treatment and see what happens. And lo and behold, she took her out of that reading treatment, and her hair started growing back, and she stopped pulling her hair. So it was really it's not always so easy to figure it out, but it was so worthwhile to really stop and analyze, when did this behavior occur? When did it escalate? So that we can be really targeted in how to address that for her. So that's the first thing I really want to talk about, is getting to the why. And part of that why might be a biomedical component, right, which you want to address, which is, I'm going to pass it on to you on that note of how to address it from a biomedical perspective.
Thanks. I just wanted to say that I'm always impressed by how logging can be so powerful,
right?
In the bionutritional world and also in your world, Tali. So
True.
Amazing. Okay, my number 1 tip, my strategy for anxiety, is a really simple one, but it's very powerful. Making sure your child is getting enough quality protein. Protein, it's a source of essential amino acids, and these amino acids are critical for making sure we have enough of those calming neurotransmitters. Protein is also essential, as we know, for keeping blood sugar stable throughout the day, and imparting a sense of calm, preventing those surges in sugar and the crashes that lead to edginess and anxiety. So I'm a huge proponent of making sure there's enough good quality protein. How can we do this? I always love to focus on breakfast. I feel like that meal, and the research has also shown that it has the most profound effect on the entire day in terms of keeping things balanced. So what can we eat? Eggs. I always recommend, if there's no sensitivity, it's an excellent source of protein and a natural breakfast food. Some kids even prefer to have meats, or will enjoy having meats for breakfast. So that's an option. Protein shakes. And then again, for kids who aren't sensitive, nuts, nut butters, those can be incorporated into baked goods, just spread on, a piece of toast or crackers. So those are some of my favorites in terms of getting protein in there in the morning. And I found it to be pretty powerful for helping with anxiety.
Great. Excellent. I would just love to learn, because you said high quality proteins. What do you distinguish between high quality and low? What would be a poor quality protein? What do you want to avoid, and what do you want to look for in terms of the kind of protein that you're giving your child?
There's so many aspects, but what I think the focus should be on is really making sure there's a nice amount in terms of the grams of protein in the morning. And then, of course, organic as much as possible, free of any additives, pesticides. So look for the quality in that regard. And then I've also found that a lot of kids just do better with animal-based proteins in the morning. Again, it depends on the diet, it depends on the child, it's very individualized, but it seems to have a much better effect long-term when it's not as carb-heavy in the morning.
Great. Excellent. Okay, so the next strategy I want to share is helping your child to organize and regulate their sensory system. So, we talked about getting to the why and understanding the source of anxiety. And one common source of anxiety for many kids can be a dysregulated sensory system, right? This very overwhelming feeling of chaos, of hearing things too loudly, overwhelmed by sound, overwhelmed by commotion, and then quickly go into a state of anxiety and overwhelm in that exact moment. So that is one of many causes, but I want to address that one because that is a common cause for anxiety. So if that comes up for your child, especially as you're logging, if you notice that's a pattern, that when there's a certain type of sensory stimulation or commotion, it's a hard time for your child to regulate, you can do a couple of things. One is modify the sensory situation, right? So that might be creating a sensory haven for your child. If you're having a family gathering and there's lots of kids, lots of people, create a really quiet space where your child can go in a room by himself, maybe in a corner with a beanbag with a blanket over him, where he can just really calm down and get a break from the sensory overload. Being aware of that in general and avoiding places or situations where the sensory stimulation really is just too much and your child doesn't have the tools right now to deal with it. So really being aware of and mindful of and modifying the sensory environment. But also exercise is a great way for your child to really organize their sensory system, release a lot of anxiety that they might have. A lot of kids really move towards running, biking, dancing, whatever could help really regulate your child's sensory system is an important piece. Swimming actually is a big one too. And the last thing I'll really mention is deep squeezes, deep pressure, and the way that really helps a child organize their sensory system and immediately go from feeling anxious to feeling much more calm. So this could be just really offering your child very, very deep, full body squeezes and then releasing, a full body on their heads, down their arms. There are children who use deep pressure vests that they wear to school that they can inflate throughout the day to give themselves that experience of deep pressure. I'm sure any of you who've been following Temple Grandin and her story over the years, she made that squeeze machine for that very purpose. She would put herself in it, it would just squeeze her and help her immediately go from feeling anxious to feeling more calm. So those are some strategies you can do to help your child regulate and organize what could be a very disorganized sensory system, which can be a primary cause for anxiety.
Okay, my second tip, again, it's off the bat kind of a simple one, but it's pretty powerful for people that respond to it. Try magnesium. This is a basic but really critical mineral that many people are deficient in. Also, a lot of times there's a focus on calcium, and magnesium is kind of left aside. Really important to have the balance of both of those. And when taking it, it can have an immediate effect on anxiety, on feelings of depression. It helps to balance blood sugar, which I mentioned a few minutes ago, inflammation, and it supports those relaxing neurotransmitters in the brain. It also, by the way, is a great one for helping with sleep. So anybody who needs kind of a little help unwinding and getting that deeper sleep, really effective. Food sources, my favorites are, again, almonds, nut butters, banana, avocado, beans and greens, really great sources of magnesium. And then for people who need a little bit of a boost or whose diets are not quite balanced enough yet to rely on for sources of magnesium, there's different supplement forms. There's a whole list. Some of my favorites are magnesium glycinate, magnesium malate, magnesium taurate. And again, working with a practitioner who's knowledgeable can help you to figure out which one might be best for you or your child.
That's great. Is it usually the supplements in like a capsule form, in a liquid form? How does magnesium usually come?
Yeah, both.
Uh-huh.
And again, depends on, the child's special needs, but both of them can be used to get the magnesium needs met.
Awesome. All right, guys. So there you have our 4 strategies, 2 biomedical and 2 therapeutic strategies to help reduce your child's anxiety, which is something we so want for our children. And so many children on the autism spectrum share and communicate that is a big part of their experience, this experience of anxiety that they are eager to get help with. By the way, I just want to share, Roni, I'm sure that you've seen this too, that everything we're sharing is useful for the children and, whether it's a child that you work with or your own child, but also for yourself, right? For the parents.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right? As many parents are like, I could really use some help with my anxiety. So these are some great tips for you too. Exercise, magnesium, these are all useful tools both for ourselves and for our children.
Great point.
Right. So we'd love to hear from you. Scroll on down, leave us a comment. What is one thing you're really taking from this video today that you could implement for your child, for your family, and any questions that you might have? We would love to hear from you. So go ahead and join the conversation below. You'll see both of us in our next video, the final video on this series, which will be challenging and aggressive behaviors. All right. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.